Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. Next week, Pope Francis arrives in Washington, D.C. from Cuba for his first visit to the United States ever. To give us some perspective on Francis's expected message while here and a preview of the October Synod, I sat down with the Archbishop of Washington, Cardinal Donald WUERL. Here's my exclusive interview. Your Eminence, tell me, what are you most looking forward to in this papal visit and what the Holy Father might say during his time here in D.C.?
I think the overriding experience is going to be joy. Just to have the Pope here. And he is so immensely popular, and he is so inviting that I'm looking forward to the energy he's going to bring to the ongoing effort of this church. So I'm looking forward to that and the fresh impetus that he'll bring. While here, I expect we're going to hear him challenge us to make our own that gospel mandate, live out the faith, and his call to be missionary disciples. I think that is something we all need to continually take to heart.
And for him, this is really a going out for Pope Francis, for Jorge Bergoglio. This is his first time in the United States, period. First time here. What do you think that experience will be like? I mean, it no doubt will be a bit of a culture shock in that he's only seen America and read about America from afar.
I think the arrival here will, as you say, it will open up for him a whole personal experience. But the impact is going to be, I think, the other way around. He is going to be bringing the pastor's soul and the pastor's vision to the White House, to the Congress of the United States. He's coming here to the center of what is the most significant country on the planet. And he's going to have an opportunity, and I think it's an opportunity he'll take and use, to speak a pastoral, a spiritual message.
There is some chatter about and question about why he decided to stop in Cuba before coming to the United States. Do you see this as a slight?
I see it as something quite normal. Cuba and the United States have been reestablishing a relationship. This is a good thing when you consider the vision of having people speak to one another, nations speak to one another. Look at the tragedies we're facing right now in the Middle East, simply because instead of speaking to one another, they're killing one another. So I think part of it is the Holy Father will use an opportunity while he's on his way here to stop and cement the church's growing freedom in Cuba.
Now, will you accompany the Pope to the next two stops on the visit to New York and Philly, or you will remain here in the diocese?
My role with the visit ends when they say wheels up.
Wheels up out of Andrews.
Out of Andrews. And actually there's no particular role for me in New York. Philadelphia is another thing because of the
World Meeting with Families. Yes. So you will be there.
I certainly am making plans to be a part of that.
Tell me, how do you see this World Meeting with Families and this entire American visit as a precursor to the Synod on the Family, of which you will be a part just 7 days at the conclusion of this visit?
And I think this meeting, this World Meeting of Families, can be an enormous blessing. Because what we're going to see is something that the Church is trying to say. Marriage works. That marriage is a beautiful and wonderful thing. Family life is the very sustaining reality of culture, any culture, anywhere in the world. And so to have all these families come together and to be celebrating who they are, we regularly here, and this happens in churches all over the country, we have anniversaries of marriages. We have wedding anniversary celebrations. And I always say to the young people, look around and you see it does work. But you have to put your energy into making it work. All of this will be sort of the visible, practical, pastoral experience. It's what we all understand. Now we go to the Synod and start talking about, well, what does that mean? What does that mean in our pastoral response? Maybe to families that have broken down, marriages that have collapsed. What love, what compassion do we bring to those people who are still a part of the family?
There were an awful lot of fireworks behind the scenes and at times on the floor of the last Synod about the way things were reported, the conversations that were taking place, the interventions that were handed in. Do you expect to see a similar tension emerge, or do you think that got out of the system at the Extraordinary Synod that already passed?
Well, my read of the 2014 Synod was that there were a couple of missteps in that the interim report reported everything that was said and perhaps gave equal weight to everything that was said instead of saying this was really not the focus of. But once it was out, it was out. The final report was so much more balanced and made up for that. So I've never been all that upset with. There are some who found it terribly distressing, but these things have a way of working their way out if you give everybody in the room long enough to pull it together. Going into this Synod, methodologically, I would hope that we have more time to talk among ourselves and less time to have to listen to each other delivering a prepared text.
Would you be for reporting all of making it all public?
Everything I would like to see, everybody who has something to say, write it out. Write it out. It can be as long as you want. You're only going to be able to give a 3 or 4 minute summary, but write that out, send it in, and that should be shared with everybody. So we all have access to everything. Then we go into what they call the small circles. And Raymond, this is the heart of the Synod. The real discussions take place there because now you're talking to across the table to someone and getting an answer. You're not giving a speech and 3 days later someone...
There's a real dialogue happening.
Exactly. And then out of that comes, well, what are the important things we want to say? And you get all these language groups at the end with their representative meeting to say, what were all the important things in your group? Here's what our group said. And out of that is supposed to come, as happened this last time, this list.
Now, when I was speaking to someone about this just the other day, I saw the breakdown. They have the 3 weeks of conversation, and they're all cordoned off. It seems the things that were most controversial at the last Synod are all moved to that last week of discussion. Divorced and remarried Catholics, whether they should have communion and a penitential process, what to do with homosexual couples, how they should be regarded in the church. All of that is pushed off to the last week. Is that a mistake? Should those conversations be had earlier to permit you the time you talked about?
Well, given the fact that when you take 3 weeks and you figure the first week is going to be for the talks, so you have 2 weeks for these discussions. And I rather like the idea of the first week making sure we're all clear on everything we agree on. So you're simply reaffirming everything the Church has experienced over 2,000 years. Then you move into, okay, now these are some of the areas where maybe we're not going to arrive at some sort of a consensus, in which case, that's fine. We know what the teaching is. One of the things I was very pleased with, though, last time was 2-week-long synod because it was a different type. It was an extraordinary. But Raymond, the entire world was listening for 2 weeks to what the Church says about marriage and family. That in itself was worth all of the time spent there.
And do you think that will repeat?
I think so. I think so. The number of media outlets, the number of media people who are asking for accreditation is going to be substantial.
Final question before I let you go. What would you like to tell the people at home who are watching this papal visit and this Washington moment while the Pope is here? What message do you hope conveys and that they receive in their homes, as they're traveling in their cars, wherever they might be?
I would hope that all of us see in this Pope the love and the compassion of Christ. And I hope they see in him an invitation to be that for others.
We'll have more from Cardinal Wuerl next week during our EWTN News live coverage. Don't miss Pope Francis in Cuba starting this Saturday, September 19th. Visit EWTN.com for details and airtime.